Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you've submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. Individuals will be allotted 5 minutes to speak or 10 minutes for a group as per our procedure bylaw. If the meeting is recessed, callers will be put on hold until the meeting reconvenes, with the exception at noon, where callers will be asked to call back in. This helps with call quality. Please note this meeting is being recorded and may be uploaded to our website and/or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. We also ask all attendees to please mute their devices to reduce disruptions to the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the MGA, Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
Administration has two proposed additions and one proposed deletion. The first addition would be attendance at ASHA conference, and this was provided by Councillor Laprise, and administration suggests to put this under agenda item 2.4.6. The second addition would be a Wheatland and Area Hospice Society request for letter of support, and that would be under agenda item 2.4.7. And administration is requesting to delete an in-camera item, the Village Infrastructure Funding Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additions or changes? I also have one proposed addition under 2.48, community recognition, just a request for council's consideration. Any other additions or changes? If not, a motion to approve the agenda is amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the, oh yeah.
Are we using eScribe?
I'll call the question. Yep, everybody can take a minute and pull it up. You betcha, we'll take 1 minute. Just let me know when everyone's logged in, and then I think administration will launch the vote. I think we're going to wait till everybody's logged in. Take your time.
I know it's tea. I heard. Thank you. Thank you. No, I had my nailed.
Teamwork.
I nailed my password. I know that. Okay, how come access is denied? Did somebody fire me that I did? What's that? Sorry, people. Okay. I launched.
I'll just give administration a moment. They were going to launch it.
Thank you. Sorry about that, people.
That's okay. I don't think you were the only one. I was also not logged on, so.
But at least you knew who I was.
Thanks, everybody. Motion is carried. We'll move to the minutes from the regular council meeting of February 6th. Did anybody see any errors or omissions?
Just to the chair, administration noted that there was one minor typographical error in the minutes. So on page 12, under 5.1, the motion number is 2024-02-45. And then the motion to come out of camera on page 13 is 2024-02-45. So just duplicate numbers. So administration just proposes just to amend the motions just to correct that. And there's no change to the motion, just the motion numbers. Thank you.
Any other errors or omissions that were noted? Thank you to administration for picking up on that. Perhaps a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Move the minutes as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? Councillor Laursen.
It looks like we have two 2024-02-46s as well.
I think that was one as well, sorry. So there is two, so we just need to change those numbers, administration. So all of them will ultimately change just to, so there's no duplicates and the numbers will just go after the 46 and.
Fantastic. Thank you for picking up on that, Councillor Laursen. So we'll just be amending the resolution numbers so that they all follow sequentially and they're all unique. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to the public hearing minutes for bylaw 2023-27. Any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve is presented.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to the minutes from the Public Presentation Committee on February 13th. Any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve.
I also move.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. Motion is carried. And finally, we'll move to 1.34, the Committee of the Whole minutes from February 13th. Any errors or omissions? If not, a motion to approve is presented.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.41. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 21 of your agenda package is the Council Resolution Tracker. The resolution tracker starts on page 24 of your agenda package. Anything in yellow is deemed ongoing. Anything in green is deemed complete. If there are any questions about the resolution tracker, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson? If not, a motion to accept his information.
So moved.
Thanks, Deputy Reeve Klassen. Any questions or discussion? Call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.42.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian from administration again. On page 32 of your agenda package is the 2024 open house scheduling for Division 2. Administration did review the previous open houses and determined that Division 2 was the next one in sequential order. This was also discussed at the organizational meeting in October 2023. So administration did think that just with Division 2, we did note that there was some recent engagement done in Gleason, some done in Jamaica, and then we thought Division 2, it might be prudent to have it at the administration office just because the administration office is in Division 2, and it actually would kind of cater closer to the western portion of Division 2 as well. So just an idea that administration had. If there are any other suggestions for open houses in Division 2 or locations, please let us know. Administration is also just looking for a date and time to hold the open house. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I would shy away from the June meetings. That's prime spraying season. First part of July. It's okay. Depends if Stampede's on or not.
I think those should be before Stampede, I believe.
I don't know when it is.
I believe the Calgary Stampede goes from, I think, the 5th till the 14th. I'm almost certain of that, actually. So I believe it starts the first Friday of every July. So the 2 dates, the Tuesday and Wednesday, the 2nd and 3rd, would be ones that fell before that and after June.
July 2nd would be right after the long weekend for Canada Day, or
Council anyway,
we do have council, yeah, that's true.
but other people.
Would people come?
Do we want to maybe look at the July 9th? I know we're getting in. My only concern moving a little bit further into the summer is just with people going away on vacation.
I think that for my personal, the 2nd or the 3rd would be the best for me.
That's what I think too.
Do we want to look at the 3rd, and it leaves a little bit more time between the long weekend and the date?
Sure.
Is the 3rd challenging for anybody, or are there any issues anybody can identify with that date? And do we want to do an evening starting at about 7 p.m. like we have been?
Yep.
Okay.
And I think here is a great location to sort of spread it out, make it more accessible to other people. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Shall I make a motion to approve the 2024 Wheatland County Division 2 Open House meeting be held on July 3rd, 2024 at the Wheatland County Administration Office commencing at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Laprise. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. Let's move to agenda item 2.43. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Mike from administration. Just going to pull up the RFD. Yeah, so annually, basically we appoint our fire guardians. It is in our bylaw as well as part of the act. So I'll just read the resolution. It's simple. It is a housekeeping item. So that council appoints the following individuals as fire guardians for Wheatland County until March 1st, 2025. So for the Wheatland County staff, Michael Borgon, Mark Romanak, Cindy Ramsey, Chris Perman, Steve Benoit, Kirk Mears, Diane Bodie. Dallin Fire Department, Albert Jensen. Carsland Fire Department, Ryan Hosworth. Standard Fire Department, Mark Dugay and Malcolm McKinnon. Gleason Fire Department, Mark Patterson and Brian Williamson. Rosebud Fire Department, Art Hudson, Craig Nelson, Lucas Surist. Wheatland West Fire Department, Mike Yakubishin, and Hazar Fire Department, Mike Hager. So they are trained annually, initially, and then annually we do touch base with them to make sure that they still want to complete this task. That's my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions regarding the RFT? Council's wishes. Councillor Laverson.
I'll move that we appoint the fire guardians as presented in the presentation.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.44. That's okay.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Council. Dave from Administration. On page 64 of your agenda package, just bring that up, is revisions to Recreation Policy 14.4. Council has discussed revisions to this policy over 3 meetings in 2023, with most recent be the community whole on December 12th, 2023. Council expressed concerns regarding the current policy and discussed opportunities to strengthen this policy to support community facilities within Whelan County. Attached, the policy drafts, the red-green version and one without edits for a little easier reading. The final draft of this policy was prepared based on the community whole's feedback, as well as a fulsome review by administration. The summary of the revisions are as follows. Hamlets and residential communities attributes are defined. A provision to request a facility audit and life cycle assessment to ensure the funding is addressing priorities of the facility. Expanded conflict of interest section and textual amendments for clarity within the policy. The draft policy potentially adds funding support for an additional 7 community facilities. Figure 1 in the report provides information on the early grant breakdown to nonprofit groups since the inception of this recreation policy. If council wishes to maintain current level of funding for the Carsland and Glacian groups that have been receiving this funding, the 2024 budget should be increased to accommodate the expected additional funding requests for these other facilities that we're adding for this policy. Administration is suggesting council add $100,000 to the community facilities funding grant program. And this concludes my presentation and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the RFD? We'll start with Councillor Kester and then move to Councillor Laprise.
I didn't see any date in that. When do they have to apply by, or is it open?
Currently, we've had the applications end at the end of March. And then we review them and bring them to council usually in April kind of time frame.
We want to add that in there someplace?
It was all depend on
Because it's new.
when we get the policy approved, then we just kind of roll that process out. So that's what historically has been. I don't know if we need to necessarily put it in there. It all depends on how quickly if this gets approved today, we could probably still meet those deadlines, I would imagine.
Or we can extend it till April, or?
We could extend it a few weeks as well to give the groups a bit more time.
I think administration could, just to this point, administration could perhaps draft us an implementation, like a 1-pager, so that the community associations or it doesn't have to be 1 page, it could be more like whatever's required, but basically just outlining the process for the implementation.
So they know.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Councillor Laprise.
I was just curious about how it interfaces with CURB. Would community associations still apply for either or if you have access to this, does this mean you don't apply for CURB anymore, or how does that work?
With the current facilities, with this program, they've been allowed to apply for CURB projects because there's more funding available for those CURB projects and not for the operating costs. The operating costs could be covered under this program, so they wouldn't be able to double dip that way. But we've been allowed them to to apply for curb funding, and then we review those to make sure there's no duplications, obviously, as
Oh,
well.
Okay, gotcha.
And through the chair, to follow up the other question, I was going to follow up with these groups as well, so we could maybe look at those timelines based on that follow-up and how much time they would need as well. I was planning on following up with them directly as well.
I love the concept. Is there going to be some sort of check and balance in the fact that in the curb funding, that the hamlets don't get penalized because people say, well, you've got access to another source of funding, you know, so that when say, I'll take my example, somebody from Cheadle makes a request under a curb, that is not sort of kicked down the road because there might be a possibility that they could fund it under this other. That's the thing. I'm worried about this. I envision this to be over and above because they are our residents.
Curb doesn't really look at what this program provides for funding as well. They just look at those individual requests. So I don't feel that will be the case.
Any other questions? Deputy Reeve Clausen.
I'll make the motion that council approves the revised recreation policy 14.4, community facilities funding grant program.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.4.
Second
There's
resolution.
a second resolution.
My apologies, yes.
Through the chair, sorry.
Council's wishes. Thank you, everybody.
I'll further make motion that council directs administration to amend the 2024 operating budget, adding $100,000 to the community facilities funding grant program.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Any questions or discussion on that motion? If not, I'll call the question. Motion is carried. Now we'll move to agenda item 2.45, Rocky Ford Rescue Fire Unit Replacement. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Mike from administration again. I have two resolutions for you today. So resolution 1 is that council approves the contribution of 60% of the value of a new Rocky Ford Rescue Fire Unit to a maximum contribution of $526,000 to be paid upon delivery in 2026. Resolution 2, that council authorizes that the proceeds raised by the trade in or sale of the current 2005 rescue unit be distributed 50% to Wheatland County Fire Capital Reserve and 50% to the Rocky Ford Rural Fire Association. So I will just read out the report quickly here. This is a little bit of a unique situation because we're a 2-year build away now. Typically what we do at the Fire Capital Committee is we meet twice a year. So we meet in February and we discuss kind of what we've been approved at budget, what we can order, and what we're looking at for the following year. So this year would be for 2025. Then in the August meeting, we discuss and we approve through resolution our 2025 budget items. Well, because we're 2 years away now, we need to start preparing, 2 years in advance. So typically what I would do is I would bring this forward after the August meeting for the 2025 budget, because this is for the 2026 budget. If we waited until August, obviously we're going to be 6 months behind. So, and then well past its 20-year replacement. So I will just read this out for the record. So in accordance with Fire Services Policy 11.1, Wheatland County Fire Services Capital Committee meets biannually to review short-term and long-term equipment replacement plans. At the February 1st, 2024 meeting, the Rocky Ford Rural Fire Association requested the replacement of their 2005 rescue unit. The rescue unit has required significant repairs over the past several months, which prompted the RFFA to complete the needs assessment. It was determined that it was more cost-effective to replace the 20-year-old rescue unit rather than attempt to extend its service. So through this, there is no NFPA standard that says that we have to replace it after 20 years. That's just sort of our procedure. So we look at 20-year replacement plans. We look at an in and out replacement in fire services at that 20-year mark. The Capital Committee agreed that the apparatus should be replaced. The cost of the fire rescue unit is estimated to cost approximately $877,132, including GST. I'll just add to that that's up $30,000 since in about a month and a half. So it's substantially increasing. To confirm this cost, a 10% deposit of $87,713.22 is required to be paid to Rocky Mountain Phoenix prior to February 22nd, 2024. So in accordance with the Fire Association Funding Policy 12.0, our FFA is responsible to fund the other 40% of the purchase price, and the county is responsible for 60%. Our RFA anticipates delivery of the new fire rescue in 2026, and at that time, the current fire rescue unit will be either sold or traded. The proceeds raised by the trade-in or sale of the current 2005 rescue unit will be allocated 50% to Wheatland County Fire Capital Reserve and 50% to Rockyford Rural Fire Association. So at the time in 2005 when it was purchased, the funding formula was 50-50. So that's how we'll reimburse it. The equipment is owned by the Rockyford Rural Fire Association, and the request would have no impact on Wheatland County capital budget. Fire Association Funding Policy 12.0 directs an allotment of annual property taxes towards Fire Association and Wheatland County Fire Service costs. This funding typically covers all association operating and capital requirements for the year. Approval of this specific request would be paid from the tax allocation, with anything beyond the allocation drawing from the Wheatland County Fire Capital Reserve. That concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions regarding the RFT? Councilor Priest?
Just have a quick question. Have you looked into what the trade-in value of a 20-year-old rescue?
So it's tough right now because we are still 2 years away. But looking at some of the costs, it's anywhere between around $50,000, I would say would be a likely. But again, it's very hard. We did look into it because we are 2 years away. They couldn't give us a solid answer yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious about order of magnitude, really. Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Kester?
I move that council approves the contribution of 60% of the value of the new Rockyford Rescue Fire Unit to a maximum contribution of $526,000 to be paid upon delivery in 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. Any questions or discussion? Just one question to administration. Assuming like we follow our procurement policy for capital equipment of this size, have we looked at canoe procurement at all? And if that's like might provide a more timely option? And they may not offer what you're looking for either, but just wondering if it's been explored.
Right. So I'm not exactly sure the procurement process that Rockyford follows. So they deal directly with the vendor. So what they do, because their association, is they do their purchasing on their own and then reimburse that 60%. That being said, I know they have done their due diligence with it. This is a Rosenbauer unit. Their fleet is typically Rosenbauer. They've got good rapport with them. They service it right in Red Deer. So it was passed through the Capital Committee, and I'm confident that they've followed their process.
That makes sense. And forgive my forgetting, I actually completely forgot that it would be bought by the association, but that makes sense. So I will withdraw my question. Any other questions or discussion? If not, I will call a question. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda item.
We still have a
Yes,
resolution to pass.
thank you.
So I will move that council authorizes that the proceeds raised by the trade-in or sale of the current 2005 rescue unit be distributed 50% to Wheatland County Fire Capital Reserve and 50% to the Rockyford Rural Fire Association.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Laverson. Councillor Kester.
Just a question on wording. Who owns this fire truck?
So the way it works is Rockyford owns it, but we lien them. So we have a lien on it. So we have that 50% lien. So when it sells, we'll get our 50% reimbursement.
Maybe we could word in there according to our lien that we get 50% back. Otherwise, it looks like to me we're telling them what to do with their truck.
Yeah, so I've discussed this with the association and the president, and
Yeah.
that is the process. So I
They're
think,
good with
yeah, I think this wording is good just to ensure that it just goes to
It's
the
done, yeah. It's just
equal accounts.
Perceived thing is what I'm worried about. But if they're good with it, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, excellent question, Councillor Custer, and thank you for already having that question with the association. And I think it's a good example of how that capital committee works so effectively by, looking collectively at what the needs are and having these conversations. So any other questions or discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. Motion is carried. Now we'll move to agenda item 2.46, ASHA conference attendance.
Yeah, I'd asked CEO Henderson to add this to an agenda. So the ASHA conference is coming up March 11 to 13 in Calgary. So I just wanted approval to attend.
Just point of order. Councillor Kester and Councillor Lawerson, if we could just avoid side conversations, please. Is there something that we need
I'm just
to
trying to see if I
discuss?
might want to go to it as well, but I need to find the date. So Councillor Kester's getting it for me.
Sounds good.
12th, 13th,
Councillor Laprise, do you have the dates of the?
March 11 to 13.
I guess.
Monday and Wednesday are bad.
Okay.
Yeah, the dates are on the proposed additions, deletions to the agenda that administration circulated.
Yeah, no, and I see that's not going to work for me, so.
Does council have any questions before we look at a motion? If not, council's wishes?
I was just wondering if we should make the motion that all appointed WHMB board members could go if they wanted to, because we've done that in the past, I believe.
So I guess you could do that, although, so the housing management body pays for the actual conference. And I think there's already a few people going, but I mean, we could approve it here and it's up to the housing board if they want to
Sorry,
approve further.
are you going as a WHMB board representative?
Yes, I guess I
Okay.
would be, yeah.
Councillor Kester?
Wheeling County also has a WHMB representative that is not a counselor. If he should choose to go, maybe we should have a motion for all board representatives. That would probably make sense.
Yeah, I think that's
Chooses
what
to go.
Deputy Reeve Clausen
Sure,
was
there might be an
referencing.
opening coming up, so.
Yeah, I believe that's what Deputy Reeve Clausen was referencing.
Yeah, just thinking historically, that's kind of what we've done, so, yeah. So I'll make the motion to approve per diems and mileage for
Any
W-
Wheatland County appointees to the WHMB.
Exactly. Board members to the ASHA conference in Calgary, Alberta from March 11th to 13th, 2024.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? We'll just give administration a moment to put up the amended motion. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We will move to 2.47, hospice letter of support. So administration circulated a request from the president of Wheatland and Area Hospice Society with the supplemental documents and has provided a paper copy to everybody. Council's wishes. Councillor Lawerson.
I'll make a motion that Wheatland County draft a letter of support for the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society to be sent to the Minister of Health. Is that adequate, Brian?
Yeah, I think just perhaps just more definition on, or through the chair, just more definition on the actual like letter of support, like the content of the letter might be good, or at least bring it back to a future council meeting if for approval.
Okay. I thought you could just whip something up good.
I can, through the chair, I can put something in draft and bring it back to council for approval. It just needs the content just needs to be approved by council as any letter of support. Okay.
Councillor Kester.
The letter of support, why the Hospice Society is doing this. AHS is in flux right now. We don't know. And AHS is presently funding some hospices for operating. So the Hospice Society is going to all the council's meetings asking for a letter of support to take and present to the Minister of Health, asking for total funding of the hospice and or see what the minister says. And if they don't, if it's maybe half and half municipal, half province, or it'll definitely be coming back. When you remember the presentation, Joni said, if things don't work out 100%, she'll come back for the presentation to get into the budget for next cycle. The idea of it is to be treated the same as say Pilgrims in Edmonton. They're totally private, totally community run, built by themselves. But for the last 2 years, the province has funded them. So that's the letter we want, is to tell everybody how great an operation it is. It's a community grassroots organization, and they would like funding. Or outside of that, you can get a hold of Joni and ask her exactly what she wants in the letter.
Yeah, true enough.
Would maybe be the more appropriate thing, but that was the gist of her presentation last week.
Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Bigger.
So does this letter of support, would it be attached to any funding? Do you know?
It's a letter of support to the Alberta government for them to provide funding.
For the health portion of the operations, right? Like the nurses and all of those people that would work there.
For operating?
Without seeing an actual letter drafted, it'd be hard to support it. I understand this ask, but also in here, it does talk about funding, and Councillor Kester mentioned funding in the future. So does that mean the support that you're supporting that general idea moving forward if funding fails at the province? I have concerns about that. In hospice in general, I have no problem supporting hospice in general. Feel like I'm being asked to pick sides here. And we had a recent announcement when there is some privatized fully funding, and then that's what I've heard. I don't know if the province is supporting that 100% or not, but I'd like some more information before we know what kind of support we can do. Everything is hearsay, but if there's stuff in flux, it will come out in the future. And if it's in flux, all this stuff's on hold anyways. So it's not a, how do I think about this? It's a provincial thing, hospice, and has been, and this is a grassroots organization that's taken the lead on it, which is great, fantastic, but the funding has always traditionally been provincial funding. So I'm leery about having funding from local municipalities.
Councillor Kester.
As I said, there's no funding asked for it now. It's a letter of support so they can go to the minister, and it would make a stronger statement to the minister for our hospice society in the county. And we would like to be treated the same as other hospice societies, private ones in Alberta. And the most recent one that I can think of is Pilgrims in Edmonton. They built their own hospice society. They get $2.5 million a year in operating funds. It's quite a bit bigger than the one we're looking for. That's what we're asking for. And if the government doesn't approve it, then it goes back to Plan B, and the hospice society will be coming back to speak to council. So right now, you're not asked to give a nickel. And it's making the minister aware that everybody approves it. And if the minister has other ideas with the other outfit, that's up to the minister, and it's not up to us. But this is just a letter of support. The community has raised money for 8 years. They got close to $4 million in this fund. They're just asking for a letter of support for the hospice in Wheatland County.
I'm going to actually use our procedure bylaw referral motion and move that we refer this back to administration to bring some more information back to council, just regarding, well, I know there's some more information that I would like prior to considering a letter of support. I don't know, are there other councillors who have further information that would be helpful prior to making a decision on this? Or am I the only one? If I'm the only one, I can just lay mine out. If there's several of us, we could submit those prior to administration prior to the next council meeting. And then administration could bring an RFD back just with some context information and some background on this and some implications of the request for council to consider prior to deciding. So I will make that motion to refer back to administration. Councillor Kester.
On the possibility I might not be here for the next meeting, I'd like to make a further statement. This hospice is community run. The other one you had the presentation on is private. He was asked a few questions on the running of his hospice. He did not answer and said he would not provide.
So just a point of order, Councillor Kester. We're currently just addressing a request for a letter of support from the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. And so the agenda doesn't include discussion of other potential projects. So we should focus the conversation on the motion to refer to administration, the request for a letter of support for the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. Councillor Eichert.
I've read this letter and I agree in principle on a lot. I just need, there's got to be a correction in here when it says in the second paragraph, develop strategic partnerships with healthcare providers like Wheatland Lodge. And Wheatland Lodge is a residential thing. Any healthcare is home care in that, and that'd be provided by a third party. So like having that saying they're healthcare providers, that sort of muddies the water. So like administration, if they make a note of that, but yeah, I definitely want to see what we're signing up for here.
Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Just on procedure, I believe there was a motion on the floor that hasn't been withdrawn yet. So we have to deal with that first before we.
So we don't. You can do a referral motion to refer a matter or a motion to administration. It is debatable, but it can be done when there's a motion. We can refer the motion to administration to bring back further information. I'll look to administration.
Yes, so through the chair. So I did, when the referral motion came up, I did have to pull up the procedure bylaw. But under paragraph 160, referral motion should be used in circumstances where doing something further is the main consideration, whether there, sorry, Tuesday after a long weekend, whether that is for the further action or for more information prior to deciding on the motion, the matter or motion. So the way administration interprets this is that if there is a referral motion, then administration will have to bring back information on this motion prior to voting. The motion technically is still there.
Yes.
Sorry, address it at a future council meeting.
So it's just more effective than a tabling because it actually directs administration to bring the information back. So it's not just a timing issue, but where I'm requesting further information prior to making the decision.
Yes, I already stated I'd like more information because if the question is asked right at this moment, the support would not be there from me. I need some more information. There's so much in the air in the area. The private versus public doesn't bear any relevance to me. It's just what's going on now. And I'd really like it if we'd had some provincial idea what was going on. Would give me a lot of clarity. I think back to when hospice was originally presented here, and I don't have the exact dates, but I think I asked at another meeting how many beds were necessary, if there was 2 of them. And I think I recall hospice here at one point said that the need was for 4 and they were going for 6. Now there's a possibility of being 12. So I don't know if that information is current or relevant, but somebody out there does, and administration could maybe track that down and find out what we need to know to make a good decision. At least for me. Thanks.
Yeah, and along those same lines, I would also like to see some information around that. In addition, if administration has capacity, just to look into maybe some examples of funding models for private hospices in Alberta, just so we have some idea of that. And then there was also just the question around the implication of providing a letter of support and how that interfaces with a future potential request for funding. Is there any other information that anybody would like administration to explore and bring back for our consideration?
Just through the chair, administration doesn't have a say in the matter, but I think one item that was discussed too was for administration to reach out to the president of the Hospice Society, just to understand more clarity on that letter of support, just to see exactly what the content is. Even a template might be good too, just as a recommendation from administration. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that would be prudent as part of bringing a report back to council. Any other information anybody would like to see? If something does occur to you, just reach out to administration. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. So we'll be voting on the motion to refer the motion to administration to bring back to a future council meeting. Yes. Motion is carried. We'll move to agenda item 2.48. Under our communications and public relations policies, we have a provision for community recognition. And there's a young lad who lives in Wheatland County who has had some significant athletic achievements, being selected for the RBC, it's called RBC Direct. I have a note on it somewhere. It's basically an Olympic preparation program, and he's been chosen in the sport of luge to do some preparation. One of very few athletes in Canada who's been selected. So I'm requesting that council consider inviting him to a future council meeting to recognize those achievements. There is a provision for a certificate within that policy, and I thought it might be nice if it was possible for him to join us for lunch at a future council meeting, and for us just to discuss what he's been up to and to celebrate that achievement. It's substantive, and also just to open it to anybody on council. If you're aware of an individual who's doing something outstanding in the community, I think it would be great if we could start recognizing these achievements of Wheatland County residents and their contributions to our community and potentially to future Olympics. So any questions? So I would perhaps move to direct administration to facilitate the recognition of Connor Coutts' athletic achievement at a future council meeting. And that just gives administration latitude to coordinate that and prepare.
Yeah, I really think it's good we haven't really done that here, is note the younger generations, what they're up to. And we have a lot of really good individuals in the county, greater county area that have good physical achievements and, sport or whatever they choose. And I think it's great to recognize that and support that. So.
Any other questions or discussion?
I would just like to add that not just sports, perhaps there could
Absolutely.
be authors or artists or any other kind of achievement. So.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be youth as well. We have residents of all ages who have made, significant contributions to the county. Yeah, whether it's in the arts or in community involvement or things like that. So I just thought it would be nice to start recognizing and celebrating some of those achievements, and 100% open to really honestly any realm. But just to highlight those. Any other questions or discussion?
Just point out that I love the democratic process, because I would have never thought that. And it's, once it's in my head, if someone brings up that point, then I realize that. So thank you for that.
Sorry, just a point through from administration through the chair. If council does find this a good positive experience, perhaps council may choose to amend a communications policy to future to allow this to happen just through policy, so it doesn't have to come back through council like this, and it's just uniformly applied, and all of council is aware of the options to do that for all their constituents. Thank you.
And the policy, the policy does say or other, so it talks about grand openings, other anniversaries, or other appropriate milestones and achievements of local organizations and persons as approved by council resolution. So it does reference the council resolution, which maybe isn't a bad practice, just to ensure that one of us isn't making a misstep in celebrating something that, maybe had unanticipated consequences that collectively we can identify that maybe one person might not. Is that making sense? I'm actually not referencing anything specific, but it could happen.
Checks and balances are always good. I've seen that in other levels of politics.
Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Councillor Kester.
I don't know this young lad. I see it's for athletic achievements. We have lots of professional athletics that can come out of this county that we've never recognized. We have quite a few individuals that make significant contributions to the well-being of people that live here. I just would like maybe some more information why this guy is so good, or is this something that we're going to start today and recognize everyone that makes it out of the amateur ranks or whatever ranks he's in? I just wonder if we're just not opening up a big hole here. I would like a little more information.
Yeah, so I'm happy to, and it's an excellent point, Councillor Kester, and I think it would be incumbent on the councillor who's bringing forward the request for recognition to have that information. I did find my notes, and I'm happy to share more about Connor's accomplishments. So he was chosen to attend and sorry, I just lost the note. Going back to it. He was chosen to attend the RBC training ground, outshining over 2,200 participants. Connor's journey from hockey to catching the eye of Luge Canada showcases his incredible talent and dedication. And he has, after attending the RBC training ground, he has been chosen as one of 2023 RBC Future Olympians. And those are, it's a pool of only 30 individuals across Canada who were identified out of the individuals who actually went to the training camp. So for me, it's the potential that we have a young individual who's training to be a potential Olympian. And that would be why I would be requesting this consideration. And certainly any future ones we can bring back information. It might even be a good idea to circulate, and I will endeavor to do this in the future, to circulate to all of council and to CAO Henderson, just perhaps a little synopsis of the accomplishments or some background context. And I apologize that I didn't provide that for this request, but we can make that part of the process for in the future. Any other questions or discussion?
I really like this idea, and I'm just sort of thinking that maybe we should have administration look into naming this, like, so that it would be an award that would have a name attached to the award, because there have been a lot of people in the past that have brought honor to the region, and like it could almost be done, like for somebody in back 50, 60 years ago. It just a thought I was thinking. It just that it would. I really like this idea, because we do not recognize. We do not go out there and we do not blow our own horns often enough, and I think this would be a really great vehicle to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea. Maybe let's have council just contemplate that a little bit more, and maybe we could even bring it to a committee of the whole for discussion, just on if we could do some kind of potential more formal recognition. This is just an existing method where we could do sort of these more ad hoc or informal recognition, but I'm intrigued by your idea and would love to think about that and talk about that some more. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We'll move to correspondence. We had one piece of correspondence. Regarding potential meeting with the RCMP at the RMA conference. What's council's thoughts?
I'm okay if we don't.
Does anybody have any pressing matters that they would like to address with RCMP for this conference? I know several of you had the opportunity to meet with RCMP at the last conference.
I'm just wondering, with the superintendent of K Division is stepping down, I'm not sure if the new person will be appointed, and if the new person is appointed, it would be a good time to meet the new person, just to sort of put a name to a face. That's the only reason. Other than that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if the new appointee has been announced. Councillor Kister.
I agree with Tom, and also make a further recommendation that we send a letter to the former, I forget his name.
Curtis Blocky.
Yeah. Thanking him for his years of service, because he was quite helpful, really, he was up there.
That's a great idea. Other than meeting the new commanding officer, are there any issues that we would like to address?
Yeah, do we need to follow up on our rave party policy? Like, there definitely was a disc, so maybe with the new, maybe just a follow up on that alone might be worth the meeting.
I would support that for sure. Any other issues? Does administration have any issues that you can think of that we've discussed that we should be addressing?
Through the chair, no.
We could put a plug in about the watch clerk funding again. Just keep it in there that it is a proven positive influence in the communities, and it's not something that's done all over Alberta. That's just kind of been my approach on it. Has been, it's a one-off here and there, but it's got to have some recognition because it does provide positive effects from the reports we've heard back, and we need to get some points on the board for maybe funding or something like that. So.
Might also be good to request in advance if they could be prepared to show the results of the police funding model. So I know we have had at least one additional officer stationed as a result of that funding. I can recall one letter from one detachment commander, but it might be good to have a summary from the 5 detachments that serve Wheatland County, what that police funding model has resulted in terms of increased capacity for Wheatland County. Is there anything else? So perhaps a motion directing administration to respond to, I think it's Sergeant Salmon, with regards to the questions outlined in his correspondence. If somebody's prepared to make that motion.
I will make that motion.
Councillor Eichert, we'll just give administration a moment. Questions or discussion? Councillor Kester.
Would that include a letter of, to the present one of our appreciation?
Let's do a second motion
Yeah,
for
I'm
that
thinking that would be
after
a second
this.
motion.
Second one, okay.
Yep, excellent. Any other questions or discussion on this motion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. Second motion arising.
I'll make a motion that we send a letter of appreciation to the present commander-in-chief, or whatever his title is. Sorry.
K Division. Any questions or discussion? Just give administration a moment.
Just 1 second before we make that motion final.
I think commanding officer.
Yeah, we're just looking for the wording.
So commanding officer for K Division Deputy Commissioner. It was Curtis Zablocki. It does, it sounds good. And it just wouldn't be present because he has retired. So former or retiring or retired. Yeah, he's outgone though. That looks good. So we have a motion. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. Question to administration, should we have a motion to accept his information as well if we have acted?
I think there was just one item.
Not required.
Yeah, I don't think it's required.
Okay. Does council need just a brief break before we move into closed session? Okay, We'll recess for 5 minutes, reconvene at 10 after. We'll reconvene here and then move into closed session. Take 5 minutes. Good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting back to order. And I will move us into closed session. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. Motion is carried. We'll reconvene in the committee room. I'll move us out of closed session. I'll call the question. Take your time.
No pressure. Fast as I click. Hey, there.
And that motion is carried. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.